Welcome to the Blossoming Wisdom podcast. Join us in conversation as we trace the path from the earth to the sky, exploring the traditions of magic, mysticism, healing, and devotional practice. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back, everybody. So today's episode, we're going to talk about superstition as a way to escape reality. Chandra, I think this is the most exciting topic, actually. It's such a provocative title, so I actually want to honor you and thank you for bringing this into the fold. And I think with that, as we were discussing before we started to record, it kind of connects with our last topic of spiritual materialism. And so with that, Chandra, can you start us off on this topic and talk about why you're inspired and kind of where we want to drive the conversation today?
Yes. First of all, I have to say I have been really thinking about this a lot in the last years, seeing the boom in the interest into spiritual practices, and seeing in many ways that was a very superficial way to connect with spiritual practices, meaning that in many cases, it is more about mimicking something, emulating something that it looks like that. It looks like you are in the nirvana, or you are realized, or you are just happy, and it's not tackling the real deals, which are also very uncomfortable to experience and not so aesthetic to show. So there is a matter of aesthetic that we see because right now our society is based on images and videos, even more videos now. And so the only way to communicate what you're doing is to showing images and videos of you doing it or somebody doing it, or and this is then a very easy way to sell smoke and to pretend that you're doing something while you're actually only trying to look like you're doing something. And in this way, you also start weaving a story about your practice, because there has to be a story that you tell yourself in order to continue, not because maybe it's even many years that you are into yoga or some kind of healing or some kind of other spiritual tradition, but you are more trying to fit in the community, to belong somewhere, to say like, I'm one of those people which are quite cool because they do that thing, and you are actually avoiding to do your inner work. And this could be because of the community itself is running in that way. We were talking about it a little bit in this episode about spiritual materialism, about some communities that we have experience of. But it could also be because you are not actually ready to do that work. And so you invent a whole story about you're actually doing something while you are not. And this is even more dangerous than not having any contact with a spiritual practice at all, in my humble opinion. Yes. What do you think?
I would say, I would add to it that, I think it really is this way to really avoid the inner working. Because I think that a big part of our spiritual experience is realizing the self. And we've heard this through many traditions, right? Okay, so what is the self? Like, we're always putting on these things outside to create a certain image. And then we get busy in the distraction, thinking that we have to do these certain things, even though they may even be feeling unnatural to us. So I can once again, smash a little bit on the 3HF, like with all the people putting on a turban, right? When for a lot of people it was very unnatural. but it was a way for them to feel special. And then to use it as a cover up for not doing what the real polishing needs to be. I think that would be one thing. But I think what provoked me a lot with this title, Chandra, because actually, I think, again, I can just say how much I appreciate you. And this is not a brown nosing podcast, but this is just us really like sharing, because it's such a provocative title, and how I view this. This is, how, and we know people like this, and we won't name names, but they use a lot of magic, right? They use a lot of magic and kind of like in not such a great way. And then they create all of this drama and building, like they wind themselves up like a tornado doing certain rituals and doing certain things. And then they get trapped rather than just dealing with the face that's, of the reality that's with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel we need to clear a little bit the word superstition. What do we mean by superstition? What do you think superstition is? Maybe Monica could help us define this word. What she thinks.
Yeah, this was going to be my question, what we think or how we define superstition. Because like some of these things that we're describing, like putting on a turban or wearing a certain color or having something, is that superstition or is that just part of a ritual? And is there a difference? Because to me superstition is like, it's a little more silly. It's like, no, I'm not gonna, maybe this is simplistic, but it's like, no, I'm not gonna go under the stairs because that's bad luck, or I'm gonna make sure. And superstition, there's things that are related to superstition in what I think that are not necessarily negative. Like some people are like, oh, I'm gonna bring my grandma's necklace because this is gonna protect me. And I think that's also superstition. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Probably it has to do a little bit with the intention. If it there is an intention of kind of covering up or avoiding, or there is an intention of like making some good. And I met people who were part of different spiritual communities, not, that I don't know personally. I never had the experience of, but they told me that they were feeling very guilty, for example, for skipping some meditation practice or some rituals, and they were told by other people in the community and by people who was more experienced and supposed to guide you and kind of help you in the path. They were told that if they wouldn't do that meditation or that practice, then bad things would happen. Again, it's better not to name, no, but I met people who were seriously troubled because they felt that everything that was going wrong in their lives was a problem due to their lack of discipline or lack of dedication to that one specific spiritual practice. This I call superstition also. And another thing that I call superstition is something that Gurudev Singh used to say, like some kind of belief that is helpful for us to tell the story we want to hear, but is not connected with anything that is real, is not connected with anything that is somehow, yes, like not even just shareable, but is a way to avoid what is real. So whichever story we tell ourselves, like, no, I cannot go to this place because there will be people that is different from me, and there is people maybe that don't meditate, or maybe people that drink alcohol or use drugs, and then I shouldn't be with these people. I should avoid bad companies, like this kind of this is also a way of superstition for me.
That sounds more like judgment than superstition, but it's okay. I'm just trying to make a joke, but I know what you're saying. But to me, yeah. I guess it's superstition, but it's also like um, I believe that whatever I do is better than just what you're describing just now. That a certain belief that whatever I'm doing is somehow um, I'm not flexible enough to understand that there's other ways. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. But yeah, because when I think of superstition, I think of that part, but I also think about like being brought up in different cultures and how different cultures have their own superstition. And I have a little story of a friend of mine. She probably will kill me if I tell this story, but she's the least, like, she doesn't believe in magic. She's like in a whole different like thing, doing her own thing. And I was spending some time with her, and she had a business, and the business was going, she has a business, and the business was going really poorly. And she said to me, you know what we did? We did a limpia, like we did a clearing on the house. And I was like, what? Because that's something that she will never do ever in her whole life. And she was like, well, I thought like it doesn't hurt to put some good intentions, like, so let's do it. But I'm just telling this story because it took me so out of surprise that she was speaking about this. And to me, superstition, I think maybe we're talking about different topics, but to me, superstition is a lot about this, like the little things that you believe in your daily life to make things work, and sometimes are very like culturally charged. Like I know I'm always like, let's not talk about yoga, let's talk about like, so if it gets annoying, let me know. But I also know like maybe in Italy there's some things that like people are really like superstitious about, or like for example, like here is like whenever somebody's sweeping, you shouldn't let them sweep your feet because then you won't get married. That's very patriarchal, but still you are like, I don't want to test fate, and then you are like, let's not get into that game. So when I talk about when I hear the word superstition, all these like memories come to mind to me.
Okay, but I will say, and I agree, I would say that, it is something that we believe that we give power to. This is superstition. So it can just be even created. It can be something that's handed down culturally. It can also be something even your grandmother told you that sticks with you, and it creates such a fear of having an impact, so it's something you believe that you give power to. And then sometimes what I see, and my world really is impacted mostly by yogis and also the mystics, so not just 3HO, but I like to beat up on 3HO, sorry, a little bit. It's payback time. But, it's something that we give power to that disempowers us in some way. And some things really, I believe, but other people really don't. And it's something that, for instance, I will like build my life around doing certain things because I believe in doing something, there's an impact, and I connect with that. So I also think it maybe it is a judgment of good and bad and result. If I do this, it's good. And it's again the same thing of this ego. And maybe also magic too, because I think that's also a deeply like, we're just like we were talking in the last episode, we're just children. How can we really know a lot of things? Actually, really, we're just so young. The world, not just the three of us, but just people on this planet. There's not so many wise beings that actually show themselves to us. I'm sure they exist though. But I would say it's something that we believe that we give power, and maybe it comes like historically through our our lineage or our cultures, things like this, So like in India, it's like forbidden to clean your house after sunset. Because then they believe it takes all the energy outside of you. You just take it away. And people, they won't vacuum, they won't sweep, they won't clean. They won't do it. Where it comes from, who knows? Who knows who started it? So I think this somehow, I'm not saying there's escaping reality, but I see especially it's highly charged within the West, and I would also say as an astrologer, when people have certain positions of their chart with the planets and nakshatras, there's a big belief about certain places being very negative, specifically to women, and that they can't be married. Or if they're married, then you have to do a lot of rituals for it. And so people, and I won't say what it is because I don't want to tell people who may have this and then think, oh my God, I'm also guilty, because it's just not true. It's never written in anywhere, but it got kind of put into the society, I would say, not even the culture of it. So I think it's something that we believe that we empower. And it's really also true with magic. And I know you can verify this, Monica, because, some of my family is into the magic scene. My best friend growing up, she, her, and I'm still close with her, and she's still a practicing witch, and she's Cuban. And there's certain things that her grandmother would say, don't believe it. Because as soon as you believe it, you give power, because suddenly something would be, and then you're frozen. You're just frozen in place and become afraid. I think that's also superstition, So I think I also think what's really treacherous is that people in the West who are now becoming weekend shaman teachers and, maybe 30-day course healers, they also create a sense of, you have to take my course and I'll show you the way. It also creates fear. So I think also superstition maybe is this pulse of creating fear. But maybe I could be wrong. Monica? What would you say about
Yeah.
it? Since you come from really the society, from the both of us, of magic.
Well, I think it's magic. There's magic everywhere, like we said. But I agree with that. I guess superstition is like there's a fine line between coming from a really deep place of fear and 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 connecting to something higher and really powerful. But of course comes from fear, because it's like, I'm gonna wear this because I don't want to have bad luck, or I'm gonna do this because I don't want this to happen, or like, if the salt falls, I have to throw it over my shoulder because I don't want bad luck. So it comes from that place. And then the other question you are asking, I think, it's how some people use this and this superstition to manipulate, even though that word is really charged, but to manipulate in some way, right? Because it's like, if you don't do this, this is gonna happen. And I think that's also what Chandra was talking about a little bit early in the episode, of like, if you don't meditate, you're gonna go to hell. And you're like, oh my God, hopefully not, because I don't meditate. But it manipulates. It can go into that direction of manipulating people if you get into that superstitious mindset, I guess. But then what's the cure? I'm just asking these weird questions, but what's the cure to not be so superstitious? What's the opposite?
I would say maybe there is no cure, because being superstitious is also part of the journey. When I was a little kid, there was a rhyme, don't step on the cracks, you'll break your mother's back. So there's children's nursery rhymes. I'm sure it's also in Italy and Mexico. There's certain like nursery rhymes that they teach the children. So it would said, if you walk on a crack in a sidewalk, your mother's back will break. There's these certain things that set you up, because as humans, we're easily primed. We're as easily as it's equally negative and positive. And we're receptive. It's so fascinating, because if we think about even the eye, right? So the pupil, it's actually, we are penetrated by all that we see, right? It's actually a yoni. Goes right in. Everything we take in. So we're male and female. So we're easily primed. So we're set up. So I think part of the journey is to say, yeah, I believe that, and I don't. I can say for myself, there were certain people who, maybe because I held them in high regard because of their status and because of where they came from, in my perception, that what they said was valuable. Or there's also this side from the yogis. I experienced it in India. I have never experienced it with a Western yogi, where I've been with yogis in India whose cities are fully ignited, and I watched them manipulate things. I had experienced them manipulate me, and I had experienced them also reading my mind. And it was a shocker for me, because I was like, oh my God, they do magic in India. Like, somehow it never occurred to me, because I just thought it was this holy place, but it's also super filled with magic. I was aware of certain practices, but I never thought it went in this direction. You know what I mean? So I've seen where, where we put something up high, a person or a tradition, or maybe even something that's mysterious up high, and we give it power, then helps to then prime us. Because as I was saying, we're easily loaded. So we're easily primed. So it's the way advertisers know how to catch us. It's part of like this hunter, like in our very basic nature as animals, the prey and the hunter, right? So we're easily primed because they can smell it. Oh, you're afraid, so I can do this. In the Buddhist tradition, there was a great teacher, and he said, never talk about your practice, because when you talk about your practice, you're offering it up for somebody to put a drop of lemon in your milk. And then you're going to focus always on that spoil, right? So I think that because we're so easily influenced, and because maybe it's also this state of wanting to connect with something, that we're easily dominated and controlled if we don't know who we are. And I think it's part of the journey to really explore and see, because there's people that I knew that were practicing in a way, and it took me a while to not have fear. And I just thought, who cares? And then the power was gone. I didn't die. My face didn't melt off, all these things that I was told, like, don't touch this box because it came from the graveyard, and this so and such put that, and you were just like, oh my God, like you were just walking into an office, and you just thought it was strange, so it's a way to set you up to be afraid, even though there's really nothing to be afraid of.
So I feel that we are talking about several topics in one, in a sense, because this thing of traditional or like the nursery rhymes, what is kind of a traditional superstition in Italy, by the way, we have so many. We even use some mudras to dispel bad luck, and several ones. And I feel that not all of these are based on fear that something would happen, or to make something not happen. Many are based on hope, which is the other face of fear in a way, no? So many are based on, okay, if I do this, then something good will happen. But it's kind of the same, just the other face of the medal. Then there is what we were talking about people who um, use fear to control other people in order to gain their trust or to gain power or whatever. I don't know what they want. And the other one, which was actually the one that really inspired me, is the way we manipulate ourselves. So how we tell ourselves these stories in order for our story to be coherent, to be nice. And again, we can go back to the book about Beyond Spiritual Materialism, because there is a fantastic part about how we tell ourselves that we had a fantastic spiritual experience, and so once we had that moment of enlightenment, we can never go back down. We talk to everybody about the guru we met in India or in Mexico or whatever, and we talked about how incredible this experience is, and people start coming to us and even relating to us like, oh, this person is much wiser and calmer and has a new power. People can kind of recognize some sort of change. But then when this moment of bliss, this moment where we receive the blessing, uh, goes away, fades with time, which is just natural, as everything goes away, everything changes, everything transforms. Then we deal with something else, which mostly, as he says, as Chogyam Trungpa says in the book, is kind of a depression, like a post-guru depression or something, post-enlightenment depression, like when we went so high and then we go back to normal life, and at some point is only the memory of the experience. We are not actually feeling it anymore. And this, we cannot deal with this, because if we were once so high and so happy and so blessed and blissed out, how can we now feel like a miserable mortal, just like anybody else who never did that same experience? And this is when superstition comes, for how I see it, telling us about the story, about this memory, telling it to the others, like inventing a fake reality to explain ourselves that we are actually really like the chosen ones or whatever. We found the true way, we found the path, we are so special and different than anybody else. We have this mission, like there is these people who say it very, very clearly, like, I have been sent here to heal others, and they say it to others, and they just believe it sincerely. But it's like it's this is for me a way to escape reality, because whenever a problem comes, whenever something is not coherent that happens to you, you just have to invent a more sophisticated story and complex one, so that your ego stays protected in its cocoon and you never experience a state of distress. You never allow yourself to experience a state of depression or a state of not believing in anything. You avoid the crisis, which is just part of the path. For how I see it, is just always destroying a layer of yourself, or somebody helps you doing that, or an experience comes and like breaks you completely. But then you can you can go beyond that. So it's actually something that hurts you and makes you feel very uncomfortable, but is like the only way to discover what is underneath, to discover a little better about your true self and not the one that you are imagining. So this is how, for me, this title of the episode, Superstition as a way to avoid reality, this is the real kind of seed or juice of it. um, I don't know how you feel about this that I just said.
Yeah, sometimes I get lost in my thoughts and I don't know exactly how to express it. But then so then in this sense it's a kind of superstition that has to do with a deep sense of identity then. Like how you are I'm just kind of talking as I gather my thoughts. So if I say something that you didn't say or doesn't make sense, let me know. But then it's like how this superstition is connected to a way of constructing one's identity and making sense of oneself, especially in this spiritual um, bubble atmosphere, I guess. Um, and then I guess it's true, but I also agree with what you are saying about it's like then that like walking this fine line between constructing your identity and giving meaning to your experiences and then just accepting reality, especially when you are talking about how if we have like a deep profound experience and then it's not there anymore, how we construct something to still feel that experience. And I guess I guess that's just human, but maybe the problem is when you are using this construction of your own reality or fake reality to pretend something that's not happening, right? Because for example, like some of these topics are really sophisticated, and I'm just having a hard time bringing them back to words that make sense. But I
Monica,
guess,
I
for
think you're
example,
one of the most you're the one of the most sophisticated people. So
I'm like, what does this mean? It's like I don't understand. But I guess, like for example, oh my god, it's really noisy outside. I guess I'm bringing the reality back to you girls because I'm not in a studio setting, so it's like I'm just in the middle of the field and you hear a lot of noise. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, I guess it's like I don't know. I guess for example, when you are in love and then you are not in love anymore, and then you are chasing that feeling of being in love, and then um it's a little bit what you're explaining, Chandra, but in a more like spiritual level. And then how how maybe somebody else should speak instead of me. For a second.
Yeah, so I get what you say. I just take this little part with about falling in love, and I want to make like a kind of a disclaimer. I don't know if this is can be called a disclaimer, but um, this is an experience that we all make. As you say, it's a human experience, and it's a part of for me it's a part of the spiritual path. So it's not like there is good people who don't do that and there is bad people who do that. um, I feel that I certainly did and do, and maybe I'm not even aware of it, and I feel like, oh no, there is these people. I don't want to do this. I just want to express how this can be a part of the process, that if we really want to know ourselves, we have to go through, and we have to accept, and then we have to go beyond. So it's like a challenge on the path. It's like one of the many, many traps that our self or ego or whatever you want to call it, or our mind creates these kind of obstacles, no? When it's challenged to let go. And so it's natural. It's natural. It's not something that only bad modern people do. In a way, it is related to our Western way of thinking, I feel. But also I feel that as you were saying about falling in love, it's just a part of the process. But then what happens? Sometimes you find out that the first moment of butterflies in your stomach is gone, and then there is nothing else, and you just want to run away to the next butterfly. And sometimes you feel like, oh yeah, now 2 years are gone, we are in a different phase, let's see how the journey continues. And you need to be more open than before, because you don't have that excitement that was keeping you up. And this is the same with spiritual explorations, how I think about this.
Okay, I will say this. I will say it's a disempowering thing. I am superstitious. I do rituals. I'm sure I'm crazy. And I'm sure I'm ignorant. But I will say this, and I've witnessed it, where people give people other things to do outside of themselves. Oh, you must do this and do this and do this, and it will be all right. So it's also, who even know if it's real or true? Maybe it's a way to make that person feel empowered because, okay, I will cross my hand this way and I'll put chili powder around this way and then salt all around my house, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's a way to make them feel, okay, I can come back into control because I feel this divine thing that's coming with me to help me. Maybe that's part of this ritual that's attached with the superstition, but again, it's taking the power outside of the self. I really believe in other forces and other things are working around me all the time, but I also think it's not about crazy modern people, but modern people take shortcuts. And I think in the olden days, there were people more who were qualified and that were looked at through villages and through things because they passed through either through family lineage and initiations and things where they were empowered. I believe that. I believe that people are empowered and can talk to different spaces. I believe that fully. And maybe that also makes me crazy. And that's, as I say all the time, I'm fine with being crazy. But I think that in the modern time, it's a way to create this mystery around yourself. And then you tell people, oh, you do this, and people who are vulnerable then do it, and then they're avoiding dealing with the fracture or the shatter that's actually happening within them. They're not walking through that space of themselves and going, my life, actually, I need to put my hands on the steering wheel. I don't need to hang certain things from my door to get this and this and this to stop. I see that it's a way to put on, I've got all these magician shawls that I can wear that have all the right symbols. So I can through your perception of me, again, through the pupil, the yoni, be penetrated and primed because I look a certain way and I can tell you how to run your life and what's the recipe that's going to make it better. And I think it's a way that disempowers people, and it's a way for them to escape. Okay, I'm going to put the responsibility on you to tell me how to do something, and then I'm going to follow this pattern, and I'm still going to be a mess. Or maybe if the belief is so strong that it's working, they can shift it. Because I also think that's also very true. If you believe in something enough, you can actually create it. I believe that because maybe that's the thing that gives you power to give you the courage to go through certain things. But I think for the most part, it's really easy to make yourself look dressed like and create this mystery. It's also like channeling. It's also this, where you see a lot of, okay, well, who are you talking to? How do you know? So I think this escape of reality, it's also in practice with people. It really touched me a couple of weeks ago when Monica said, we're human, because I forget that a lot. Not that I think I'm floating around on some lotus flower walking around, but it's also this connection as a human, just to be human, I think is so powerful. But we're going outside of ourselves, thinking we need certain things to fix us, when it just, most people in the West, in working with people in business and stuff, they looked at the yogis and spiritual people and esoteric people as being neurotic and nuts. In many ways they are. Many ways they are. I think in cultures where it's naturally expressed, like Monica and I, we've had these conversations. India, like you said, in India and Mexico, they're like sister countries. It's really true, because they also have this thing where they hang chilies and limes outside of doors to ward off evil spirit. It's the same tradition expressed in two different lands, right? And it doesn't matter if they're Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, you'll see all the shopkeepers doing it because they really believe it. And maybe it's that belief that creates that reality. But I think how it is, I don't know. I'll tell you a quick story. So when I first moved to Amsterdam, okay, I went into the office because I was sent over by Yogi Bhajan. And I went into the office and they were saging and doing all of this, like they were saging themselves and had feathers and doing this whole thing in the customer service office. Because they believed they needed to do this clearing before they could do their work. And I asked them, what the hell is going on? Because I thought, why do we have to have this big ceremony of action just to talk to somebody about a refund or something? Like, it was just so bizarre to me, where they're divorced from reality of just doing normal stuff. I have to do this first before I live, or I have to do this first so I can live. Okay. So where do we get impregnated with the idea that we need to have things to feel empowered? And maybe it goes the same with our practice as well. Thoughts? It's a true story, by the way. It's a true story.
But to me, it's almost as if, even though, if you are doing this in this neurotic and superstitious way, it's almost like, even though if you're doing that every day, you are so disconnected from what you are doing. And I'm just saying that because I'm traveling in the south of Mexico, and I'm going to visit different places to do some research. And I went to this little kitchen house restaurant, and the lady that was cooking, she had a big thing of copal and incense burning, and she was just going around, and she said, oh, it's just because there's too many mosquitoes, and the smoke helps the mosquitoes go away. And then she had a little altar, and then she put it there, but it was for the mosquitoes. And then the next day I went to this place where they were doing some art, and the art that they are doing comes from the copal tree, and she was burning some copal, and she says, like, yes, you can put this if you are going to the church or if you need a limpia, but it's so casual. And what I'm trying to say is that somehow it's so, and I think that's the thing that I have the hardest part with, when something becomes so exotic that people actually get disconnected from it. Like, here is just part of your life and your connection, but it's not as special, if that makes sense. But then if you take it out of context and you become so neurotic that you are like, if I don't do this every day, something bad is gonna happen. Actually, you're really disconnected from what you are doing, I think.
Right. But I would also add to that, it's also the people who are practicing, at least in my time, in India, where, you know, it's, and also with having contact with like some people who also practice in, um, not in a yogic way, they practice in magic. They also don't want the eyes on it. So they will play it down. So it's not even something that's broadcasted out. You know what I
But
mean?
that's
So,
something different. That's something
yeah,
completely different. Because, wait,
no, go ahead, please. Go ahead, Money.
yeah, a motorbike was passing. That's something different because there's things, there's people that are like, I'm doing magic, I'm doing rituals. And there's everyday life rituals that happen. And
Right.
that they are there, and that's that doesn't have such a charged meaning. It's just what you do every day, and it's magical, but it's not as charged as what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say? This
Yes,
part of
and that
people like saying, I'm doing magic, and there's this part of just these little rituals that you do.
right. But that's the natural way of doing it. Whereas when we're adopting it as something that we're putting on as addressing, because it's everything that you start new, you think you know it all. Everybody gets into that, whether you're a vegan or you're, into a new political party or, whatever. When we start something new, all we can do is talk about it. And, those closest to us have to be like the recipient of it. But I think in the West, you know, and it's not about the West versus the East versus, the South Americas. And like, it's not this. Even we could talk about that in shamans and doing and taking like plant medicines and all these things. The question really is that from those places that those traditions sit, and when they're doing it and it's just part of their natural life. This is not the superstition as a way to escape reality. It's just part of the ritual, just like we all have rituals. But it's looking, for me, how I understand this topic, it's also how we become neurotic with it. And then how we try to package it in a way to control people or to feel disempowered, to give the responsibility to something outside of ourselves rather than saying, oh, it's me.
Yeah, and this is what I was trying to say. When you take it and brand it and sell it, and you're actually becoming really disconnected from the essence of it. I'm just repeating myself,
Right.
but this is what I was just trying to say. And yeah, when you become neurotic about it, then it's like you're throwing it to the trash. Maybe this is too intense to say, but you are completely becoming disconnected from it.
I feel that now we are going even beyond that, because that, when you say neurotic and when you were saying about this kind of behavior, I really felt it has to do with some people's personality disorders, which we all have now, and so it's kind of related to this OCD and paranoia. So you have the paranoia that somebody will hurt you or something will hurt you if you don't do like this and that. So we bring our own personality disorders, our own kind of mental illnesses into what we would actually do to get rid of that, or to learn to live with who we are just as we are. So instead of helping ourselves, we are kind of sucking the spiritual practice into our neurotic brain, and so we are not doing the real thing, and we're just coloring it all the way that it fits with our personality disorder. So this is how I feel about this. And on the other hand, this thing got so much, like, so diffused, that now we are experiencing people who are already practicing something since years and years, and they have many many students, and they have many followers, or however you want to call them. And so it is already being taught in this way. Like, there is some people who are just transmitting these superstitions as if they would be teachings. And maybe it even changes, because maybe that day, if you are in that mindset, not that day you found a leaf that was heart-shaped, then it means that whenever you look around, if you see a heart, it means the universe loves you. Now I'm making a stupid example, but there is this kind of stuff going around. And then the other day you see 1111 on your phone, and then it means you are connected. And then the other day there is the moon, like that. Even astrological stuff, I'm sure you know about all of this, no? Not really studying what it means, and like what we would do to in order to put ourselves in harmony with what is happening in the sky, so that we can actually kind of go with that flow instead of against it, or work on the things that are more easily resolved in those special astronomic moments. Instead of doing this, everybody's like, oh yeah, there is full moon, so I am in this mood. It's like with period, no? It's very funny, like, oh no, I am having a PMS, and so this is why I feel like this. And the other time is, oh no, no, Mercury is in retrograde, so this is why I feel like this. And the other time is, oh no, there is full moon and eclipse, and this is why this is happening. So we always need to find an explanation. And I think we go back to the fear of the unknown with this. We go back to the fear of just, it's just what it is. If you do a meditation experience and you see a golden vase levitating in front of you, then maybe you spend the next years, maybe even with your psychotherapist or whatever, trying to find out if that vase has a meaning about your past life or your future or your being or your mission or whatever. Just let go. We have to be light in a way, no? Like, okay, we are accumulating knowledge and experience, but it's not like everything that happens to us is a teaching. It's just an experience.
That's right. Not everything is this great, huge something. I think that, in going to the astrology, as a Vedic astrologer, it's very different to the West. And certainly I took a position because I chose one over the other. That's just it. But that's where it touches me, because people will blame things on the planet. It's like, well, no. No, because it's the similar thing with magic. It's somehow where you want it to just fit so nicely and neatly and apply to every situation, that when it's not working, then it becomes bullshit. Because I think we all here believe in magic. We all believe in this occulting. We all believe in that space of the undefined. But it's where you have the respect to know, oh, because I can grab a training doesn't mean I'm going to gain the wisdom. It's not true. And maybe if in a shortened, condensed training, becoming a shaman or becoming a healer or becoming, even becoming like this wise healer, whatever not, we create an identity around we build an identity with that so that we can feel important, rather than becoming empowered ourselves through the means of what we came into this earth with. And then respectfully approach traditions, and again, looking at it as children, as like kind of bowing our heads, because when we bow our heads actually is where we gain wisdom, because, we're looking to receive the knowledge from another teacher. or a wisdom holder. Like this Donna Leova who came and stayed with me. It was my first real experience with somebody. And for me, I at the time, it was like in the early 2000s. At the time, she was doing certain things, but I didn't question it. And I just respectfully watched. And sometimes she would have me participate, but it's not that I could say, oh, I learned this and so I can do this now. But I think that's the habit of the West, because we're in this age of Aquarius, the age to know. It's okay, really, what does that mean to know? Actually, if we thought about it, because we think things so linearly that we don't have even the kind of scope to really take it in and kind of think, what does it mean to change in this age that the planet is in, What does it mean to know? It doesn't mean that suddenly you know everything and you're getting the download, and so you can just start doing everything. You're a shaman, you're a healer, you're a magician, tarot card reader, astrologer, teacher. I'd rather leave those kinds of things to the people who actually really know. And not interfere with it. Because I am superstitious, for sure. I believe there's places I am not invited to go. And so I choose not to try and bust through the door and say, here I am, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. I know there's certain places, those beings don't want me. That energy, it's not mine. Even though I might be really attracted to it. It's somehow, again, going back to this book, or maybe it was Dr. Nita, who said, we're spoiled. Because even this word spiritual, I don't like this word spiritual. I don't think I'm spiritual. I wouldn't even know how to call myself, but this word spiritual is just so, it's lost any authority or power. It's so, And somebody like Donna Leova, who was here, and again, it was, in the early 2000s, and I've only seen her once or twice since. I don't know her state now. I don't know. But she was just so humble and just doing her thing. And she wasn't trying to get attention, even though she was stunning in her colorful outfits and her braids and her golden, teeth and all this. You just looked at her like, oh my God, she's like art. She is creation. She is the Shakti, wow, it was stunning. And I would never presume I could ever in this lifetime be like that somebody. Because, I do think that it's a way for manipulation in this day and age. It's also a way to manipulate and hijack our emotional and ego. Either that we think we're bigger, or we think we're empowered, or we think we're disempowered. When actually, we need to just take care of our everyday shit and not think we need to do some sort of a ritual around it. I'll tell you, I think we talked about it maybe once on the phone, but there was I was working in my garden and I was like, I want to invite all the fairies into my garden. I want to do that. And for me, I was I had to laugh at myself really, because afterwards I was like, wow. Wow. I was collecting things I thought they would like, and I was setting things up. I was like, I want more magic into my life. I want more of this and la, la, la. And it's true. Some things did happen. And I think you and I were talking, Chandra, and you're like, yeah, fairies aren't friendly. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember reading fairy tales and fairies aren't friendly. I remember that. And I was like, what am I doing? And then I thought, oh my God, they're going to think I'm terrible because I'm putting crystals and things in my garden. They're going to think I stole stuff from the earth and I'm a big thief and oh, not a good idea, and then suddenly I was seeing hedgehogs in my garden and wildcats and dragonflies. I was like, magic is coming. But then I was like, a week later, I was like, wow, you're such an idiot. It's actually only that your eyes are open to see something that's always been there, and it has nothing to do with you. You know? So we all kind of just are kind of stumbling through our experience thinking we're in control of something and that we can do. I do think we can make magic, but it's also we have to put it in perspective and not think that it's the most dominating thing. Most of the time we just need to take care of our shit and keep our house in order and get that clear. Yeah. Thoughts? Okay, before we close this episode, I want to hear what was your most dramatic superstition or experience with something unexplained that like captured you? What is it? Okay, we start with Chandra, and then I want to hear from Mani.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about a funny story, which is probably not the most interesting in that sense. So the one that was kind of traumatic was an experience of breaking the illusion that I went through. I was telling myself a story, very nice one, very empowering, very like, yes, I know what I'm doing, I'm with the flow, and I exactly know how to deal with my life. And so I actually had done 40 days of meditation, very, very harsh one of those where you have to keep your hand at 60 degrees for like half an hour and stuff like that. And the promise that I got from that meditation, the kind of promise I got was, after you do this for 40 days, where I was living will be a paradise to you. And it was actually horrible. So I was like, yes, I'm gonna do that. And on the 40th day, I broke up with my boyfriend, and we were together since a long time. And just I finished the meditation, and I was like, yes, now is the moment. I'm not dealing with this anymore. It's the time. It's the right time. I have to go with the flow. So I just broke up, like just like that, in that moment, like right after finishing the meditation, like crazy. And then some time went on, and I still felt like, yes, this is good, it's good what I did, it was the right moment. And then I told our shared teacher, because he asked me, and I said, well, yeah, I got rid of him, the time came. And he said something very simple that had a huge impact on me, not because of what he said, but because of something that was in the words. I don't know how to explain it, but some kind of thing broke in me, and it was painful. And he said something like, there is no such thing as the right moment. We just tell ourselves that there is such thing as the right moment for something, and then we suffer. And that was it. And I felt like an arrow was just penetrating into my heart and breaking it in pieces. And the whole evening after this conversation, it was a private conversation with him, I felt like I couldn't do anything. I was just lying on the floor, and like 3 people doing Satnam treatments on me, and my whole stomach, like I was really a mess. I was a mess. And for the whole month of December, I was depressed. I was so sad and so depressed. And I spent New Year's Eve in bed at my parents' place. Like it was just horrible. But then I realized, I connected this sadness of 1 month with that experience. And I realized that I needed to experience the sadness of this separation that was coming from, such an important relationship that was over. I needed to feel those emotions and to let them go and not kind of hiding them under the carpet and telling myself, finally I'm free, I'm happy, now I'm gonna have everything I want. The burden was the guy. No, that was such a big, believable lie. And so with this very painful experience, so simple, he helped me to go through the grief and sadness, and then so I could get rid of it in the time that it's needed without forcing anything, in a way, you know. So this is how I started to learn how important it is to also have moments of suffering, moments of pain, moments of sadness, and just experience them for how they are, and not trying to tell yourself a better story. This is it.
Moni, what's your story?
I think the one that comes to mind that's most recent. I think I shared this story before, but sometimes my stories are a little funny. But I was flying out from someplace going back home, and I had all this luggage, and I didn't have any money. And I was like, I think I told this in the podcast before, and I was in line to get my luggage checked, and I was like, I think I have magical powers, so I'm gonna put them to work. And I was like, please, 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 like, God or spirits or whatever, help me, because I don't know how am I gonna do this. And then um, I was calling to the check-in area, and I was really early there in the airport. And it was also funny because before our car passed the highway to go into the airport, there was a big accident, so there was like a lot of traffic and people backed up in the highway. But I was there in the check-in line with nobody there. And then this guy at the check-in counter called me, and I didn't even have to say anything. He was like, I'm gonna help you, because if we check in your bags, it's gonna be a lot of money for you. So I'm gonna check everything for free. And I had like weird sizes of luggage, and like one little one that was like a, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I was like, yes, thank you. And I didn't have to say anything, and then he didn't charge me anything. And this is also the problem with Superstition, because maybe he was just in a good mood, and he just saw me, like little and innocent, and he was like, I'm gonna help this poor girl. But I was like, no, I was really thinking I had like powerful um powers, like magical powers, because I was able to make this happen. And I was so happy the whole flight and so proud of myself, because it was just a magical moment, and I was like, yes, I made it. And yeah, I guess that's the most recent one. It's not so interesting, but moments like this, when what you believe you can create actually coincides with your reality and happens, can be very powerful, but also very dangerous, because they can trick you and make you think that you actually have magical powers.
I think you do have magical powers, Monica. Great.
What about yours?
Okay, I'll tell you. Birds, I have a really funny relationship with birds. And so, Monica, you know this story because I called you right away. So, this big teacher, female, um, was in Berlin. And I was working on a project. I was going to meet with some people down there. And a friend who's close with her said, oh, yeah, she wants to talk with you. Blah, blah, blah. Because, being on the inside track with Yogi Bhajan, everybody wants to know when I know what's going down with all of the mess, So it wasn't that it was like because she wanted, I had a funny relationship with her, let's say, because it felt like she was a sister in some way, even though a lot of things I didn't agree with, but there was a lot of love, because I thought, like, I can understand the Kool-Aid, let's say, like that. And I was working really hard to finish, And there's a moment that happens. I won't describe too much, but there's a moment that happens, like something stops. And then you notice. I'm sure you each had this experience. Like something made everything slows down and you see something. Right? So I was in this like pressure, 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 and then suddenly time stopped for a moment. And I looked up and I watched a bird fly into my window and crash. And my heart sank because it was like a thud. Boom! And immediately my instinct was, I need to go make peace with the earth. I need to go outside and make peace with the earth, you know? So I went outside and I tried to just say I'm sorry. I felt so, so sad, but I also recognized, oh shit, somebody's going to die. And I thought it was my brother because my brother was quite ill. And I thought it was him. So I was outside making peace with the earth and I was trying to listen what nature was saying to me. Like, what is this? What is this? Because for me, it was not a great omen. And I called Monica and I was like, Monica, what should I do? And she said the same. Go make peace with the earth. Go outside and do this and da 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 da. And then I went to Berlin and I didn't want to go. And as I was on the train, there was a feather. True story. I was with another person who saw it because I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Somebody's going to die. 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 And there was a feather that was following the train. And I was like, oh shit. Oh shit. You know? And my friend who was with me, she's like, calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down. I was like, no, something really bad is about to happen. Somebody is going to die. And I really thought it was my brother because I couldn't think who else it could be. And so I went and we had the meeting. I went and said hello to her and we had our little chat. And then I went to another meeting and this hawk in Berlin arrived and then landed on the balcony and then started screaming to me. And everybody at the table who had also hyped up somebody's going to die, something's going to happen, looked at me and said, what is this? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I was like, I got to go home. Let's go home. And you know what? My brother didn't die, but this teacher did. And I really think still it's connected. I don't think I'm enlightened, for sure not. But I do believe in omens. And I do believe that there's this language. So I think that's my most recent one that I think really I listen to. Not that I'm looking for them or like, come on, tell me more. Because actually I don't want to know the future. I don't want to know those kinds of things. Because that's a big responsibility. You know, most people want to pretend that they know, but I don't want to know it. Thank you very much. You know, but I really thought like, wow, because it's never happened to me with such a thing. So that's my story. It's kind of not a nice way to end it, but it is that. And I think, Monica, you were with me because I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And she was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Make peace with the earth. Okay, I did it already. Okay, I'll do more.
Yeah.
So if you want to end it on a funnier note, I have a meme. I have a meme to share. There is an image of a teacher and a student talking. And the student says, why am I not advancing in my technique, master? And the master says, have you seen the sunset when the seagulls fly flaming across the plain? Yes, master. And the water from the waterfall hitting the rock without achieving anything? Yes, master. And the moon reflecting on calm water? Yes, master. There's your problem. You keep watching stupid shit instead of practicing. This is what this kind of superstition is for me.
Any closing statements, Moni?
I think I'm just looking forward to keeping up with our conversations in the next episodes.
Me too. I'm sure you're a treasure box of a lot of things, and you, rightly so, don't say anything.
Sometimes I'm not trying to be funny all the time, but sometimes I'm just like,
No, actually,
I don't know what
I
I'm
like your
saying.
mystery. I like your mystery. It's good. Okay, my dears. And thank you to everyone in the audience and those who are listening on Spotify and on YouTube. We really appreciate your joining in the conversation. So leave us a comment, please. Give us a follow, a like, and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Let us know if there's other topics you'd like us to explore, or maybe some questions that you have you'd like us to maybe chew on a bit. We'd really like to create a community together of an open and flourishing, blossoming dialogue. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please join in the conversation by leaving a comment and sharing your feedback and your experience. We'd love to hear from you. Take care, everybody.